Welcome to March Mayhem, live from the ABC 3340 studios in Hoover. Here are Jeff Spiegel and Jamie Hale, sponsored by Birmingham Racecourse and Casino.
Hi everybody, Jeff Spiegel, Johnny Condon, Jamie Hale here as we're going through the brackets for the NCAA tournament. Well, let's start with the South region. Auburn, the #1 overall seed. We all know they're going to beat either Alabama State or St. Francis. So the question is, who will they play next, Louisville or Creighton? I've got Louisville.
I've got Louisville too.
I'm a Big East guy. I'm taking Creighton.
All right, let's go down the list. Michigan with former Auburn Tiger Trey Donaldson at the point, playing UC San Diego. I like Michigan, but Johnny, you're picking the upset here.
UC San Diego is probably one of the hottest teams that nobody's ever heard about. Give me them in the upset. Michigan, they just played all their games in the Big Ten tournament. Not the time for them. I'm going to take the upset.
I've got Michigan.
You got Michigan.
With you. I'm sorry.
All right, maize and blue. I've got Yale for the second year in a row beating an SEC team. This time it's going to be Texas A&M. Yale over A&M.
Aggies.
Yale lives on the defensive boards. Texas A&M is as tough as any team in the country. This is where the Cinderella story ends for Yale. I'm taking the Aggies.
Ole Miss will play either San Diego State or North Carolina. I got the Rebels beating either one of those guys.
I do too.
I think Chris Beard is probably one of the best coaches in all of college basketball. He's going to have his guys ready for March. Hotty toddy, give me the Rebs.
Third seed, Iowa State. I've got them beating Lipscomb. No problem there, agree?
Yes.
Nope.
Okay.
Oh.
Marquette over New Mexico, and then Michigan State over Bryant. Okay, so then we go to Auburn versus Louisville. Auburn advancing there.
I do. I have the Tigers advancing.
I got Auburn straight.
And I got Michigan beating Yale.
Wolverines.
You got Michigan going through?
I got Ole Miss beating Michigan State to get to the Elite Eight. Give me Ole Miss, Auburn, and an all-SEC Elite Eight.
Oh, okay. And Jamie, what about your bracket?
I have Michigan.
You got Michigan. I got Auburn beating Michigan, and I've got Michigan State beating Ole Miss, and then Auburn playing Michigan State in the Elite Eight, and Auburn going to the Final Four. You guys have Auburn in the Final Four?
Auburn beating Ole Miss. Tigers back to the Final Four for the first time since 2019.
All right. So far, so good?
So far, so good.
Okay, let's go down to the West, and Florida is the #1 seed there. We all know Florida's going to beat Norfolk. What about an SEC versus UConn matchup, Oklahoma and UConn? Who you got there?
I think a lot of people are going to take UConn, obviously back-to-back defending national titles. I just think Florida's too long, too talented, and they're arguably the best team in college basketball at this very moment. I'll take the Gators.
Yeah, Florida's peaking at the right time. If they're playing their best game, no one in the country, I don't think, can beat them.
Oklahoma 13-0 in non-conference games this year. So I got them beating UConn, but they lose to Florida. How far do you guys have Memphis going in the tournament?
I have it maybe the biggest upset in this bracket so far. I'll have Memphis beating Florida. I think Dane Dange is going to be the big force on the inside. Is going to negate the size of Alex Condon. That's my big upset. The Memphis Tigers beat Florida to go to the Elite Eight.
My big upset in this bracket is I've got Drake beating Missouri. Then I've got Drake beating Texas Tech. Drake going to the Sweet 16.
I've got Texas Tech.
I got Texas Tech too, and then down bottom obviously is where I'm going to have a team that's going to go on a long run. I'm going to have St. John's.
St. John's, I've got St. John's beating the Arkansas Kansas winner, and St. John's going all the way to they play Florida, and then I got the Gators beating St. John's.
Memphis, St. John's in the Elite Eight. I'm going to take the Johnnies and Rick Pitino to go to the Final Four.
Okay, so we've got Auburn and Florida. I've got Auburn and Florida in the Final Four, and I got Florida going to the championship game. Who do you have winning those two regions?
Auburn, St. John's, everyone's going to be taking Auburn. I'm going to zig when everyone zags. Give me the Johnnies, give me the Red Storm to beat Auburn to go to the national championship game.
Auburn's in the Natty.
Okay. All right, let's go to the East, where Duke is the #1 seed. Alabama's the #2 seed. Do you see anything preventing a Duke-Alabama matchup in the region final?
For an 11 seed, I'm fascinated by VCU. They turn teams over as much as anybody in college basketball. If they can get through that BYU game, who shoots prolific from three. Alabama, VCU, I think it's going to be a tight game. I think the Tide have this talent advantage, and they obviously have the size advantage, but there's just something about VCU. The only A-10 team in the tournament, I'm liking the Rams.
Okay. You like Alabama and Duke in the region final, Jamie?
Yeah, it's a funny matchup because, you know, you got the injury aspect where Grant Nelson's iffy. We don't know what's going to happen with him, the Cooper Flag thing. Mark Sears hasn't been playing his best game, but I've got the Tide.
Yeah.
Rolling with the Tide.
Yeah, I've got Bama and Duke in the final. I've got Bama and BYU in a really competitive game, but Bama wins that. So I've got Bama and Duke in the final there and going to the Final Four. All right, let's go down to the Midwest now, where Houston is the #1 seed. Houston highly ranked in offense and defense. You got them going all the way in your bracket?
I've got Houston beating Tennessee. Both teams have kind of been Houston and yeah, they've both been on offensive slumps, I feel like. And,
Houston, Tennessee in the Elite Eight, except I'm going to take the Volunteers. Every dog has his day, and for Rick Barnes, he's going to get to a final.
Okay, here's interesting. I've got Texas beating Xavier in that first 4 game, and then I've got Texas beating Kentucky, and then getting to the Sweet 16, and then Tennessee beating Texas. How far do you have Texas?
Texas, I have them going out in
the first 4.
I'm going to have
Yeah.
Xavier again. Maybe that's my Big East bias. I think Xavier will be the slight favorite. Texas just goes on some offensive scoring slumps where they just can't score the basketball. I was a little surprised they even made the field of 68. So I'm going to take Xavier in that one. And then Illinois is feast or famine. We saw Illinois earlier this year in Birmingham where Alabama played them. I think that's a team, if they can get hot from deep, they'll be as competitive as anybody. And playing in the Big Ten, they've been through the battles. However, when they get to Tennessee, I'm enamored by the defense they play. Zakai Ziegler is maybe my favorite player in college basketball this year, and Ches Lanier. There's not many teams that have 2 All-Americans that are going to be in this tournament. I'm going to take Tennessee to beat Illinois and then eventually beat Houston to go to the Final Four.
Okay, so to recap, my Final Four is Auburn, Florida, Bama, Houston. Jamie? Got it? Okay.
Same one. They're riding shock. I'm a little different. Auburn, St. John's, Duke, and Tennessee coming out of the Midwest.
I like it. Bold.
And the national championship game, I've got Florida beating Houston. I just don't see anyone beating Florida this year.
Same.
You're taking the Gators.
Yeah, I think Florida is unstoppable.
How is this for a crazy final? St. John's, Tennessee, Zakai Ziegler, little game-winning floater, and the Tennessee Volunteers are your national champions.
Oh.
The SEC finally gets one.
Yeah,
We'll
Rocky
see.
Top. Enjoy the tournament, everybody.